Hey everybody, we're going to talk about the parts of speech in this video. This video can be helpful for anybody who just wants to improve their writing. When you know how to play around with different forms of words, you'll be able to express yourself in a more meaningful and creative way. So knowing the parts of speech will help you do that, but also knowing the parts of speech will help your grammar. So, for example, would I say this tea is delicious or this tea is deliciously? Is it delicious or deliciously? It should be delicious because we're describing the tea, and the tea is a noun, it's a thing. And to describe a thing or a noun, we need to use an adjective. The adjective is delicious. Deliciously is an adverb. Adverbs describe other things like verbs, and I'll talk about that in this video. So here we are, parts of speech. Let's talk about them now. Okay, so these are the parts of speech we will review in this video. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, articles, pronouns, prepositions, and interjections. And I'm going to try to be very concise and clear with some examples for each one. Here we go. All right, everyone, so we're going to start with a noun first. A noun is basically a person, place, thing, or idea, as I listed up here. So what is that? A person can be anyone, a person's name, right? It could be Jamie, my name. It could be my mom. That's a person too. That's not her name, but that is the word, the noun that is used for who she is. It could be a place like home, school, or a name of a place, like UCLA is the name of a school. It could be a thing like marker, right? Or paper, okay? And some of those things are countable, like one marker, two markers, one paper, two papers? No, paper, a lot of paper, a little bit of paper, right? So that's the other thing with nouns is pay attention to whether it's countable or non-count. And then, of course, we have idea nouns. Idea nouns are ones you can't really touch or see, but you can feel them, like love or happiness or sadness, right? Okay. And usually these idea nouns, not always, but usually they're non-count also. Okay, so look at this sentence. The cup has tea in it. Okay, let's see if we can find the nouns in this sentence. Okay, do we have any people, places, things, or ideas? Well, here we have a thing, the cup. So I'm going to just underline that. There's a noun. Has tea in it. Okay, do you see anything else that could be a noun? Yep, tea. Tea is a thing as well. And then in it, we're going to talk about it later. Okay, it makes sense that you think it's a noun. It refers to the cup, right? But we're going to talk about what that is in a little bit. Okay, so here we have two nouns, all right? Look at this sentence. I drink tea daily, okay? I can say that's a noun. There is another word for it, which we'll talk about later, okay? But that works. And then tea, there's another noun. So here we have our nouns. We're going to talk about why these things are not nouns as you go through this video. But this is just a little review of each part of speech, okay? So let's talk about verbs. Verbs are actions or states. I know that doesn't really help, but let me explain an action. An action is pretty simple to understand. An action is where, let's imagine this is a picture. And what am I doing in this picture? What can you see me doing right now? Okay, you see me blinking. Okay, there's an action. You see me moving my arms. That's an action. You see me talking. That's an action. Okay, breathing. That's an action. Those are verbs. Okay, and people or things or animals do these actions. Okay. Now a state can also be a verb, but those are a little bit harder to recognize. So I like to explain it to my students like this. A state is something that you can't really see in a picture. So look at me right now. Can you see that I am being a person? No, I just am. So usually for state verbs, stative verbs, we say. They're also usually non-action verbs, verbs that describe our state, so you can't see it in a picture. You cannot see me being a person. I just am a person. Or can you see that I know what I'm talking about? Or, can you see it happening? No, it's just I know. I hope I know what I'm talking about. Or understand, if you write a question and I'm looking at your question. Can you see that I understand your question by the way I look? Or is that just, that's a state? Okay, so I don't usually say I'm understanding right now. I'm understanding your question. I would say I understand your question. Or I know you, not I'm knowing you. Or I am a person, not I am being a person. So state verbs are a little bit hard to recognize, but you can try to think of them as verbs, things that are happening that you can't see inside of somebody. So like the way you feel or something that you're thinking, okay? And it is a little complicated, okay? So it is helpful to know about action and non-action verbs to learn this, okay? But that's how I like to explain it, is a state is often, not always, an action versus a non-action verb situation. So action verb, non-action verb. Action, I am talking, I understand. I'm breathing, I like something, right? I like grammar. Okay, that's a non-action verb. Okay, so let's look at some examples in these sentences and try to find the verbs. All right, the cup has tea in it. Okay, so a trick for you is a verb always comes after a noun, because a verb is something that a noun usually does or is, okay? So look, we have a noun here and we have a noun here. So do you see any actions or states after those nouns? The cup has tea in it. This is the verb. And it's actually a non-action verb, or you could say it's a state. It's just to simplify things. You can't say, I am having a cup of tea, right? Or you can't say the cup is having tea in it. That's because have is a non-action verb. It's non-action, okay? Because we're talking about possession. But that is a verb, okay? And the cup is the one that has it, okay? The cup is doing this action, or is being this state, okay? Here, I drink tea daily, okay? So here we have a clear action. Do you see it? Drink. That's easier to find. That is the verb, okay? And who's doing the verb? I, okay? So you always need to have something doing that verb, okay? So another word for this noun is a subject, okay? And I will talk about that in another video called Parts of a Sentence, if you want to review the parts of a sentence. This one is on parts of speech, so the parts of a sentence. But yeah, when you have a verb before it, you always need to have a subject, and subjects are always nouns. All right, let's talk about adjectives next. I love adjectives. Adjectives are words that just describe nouns. They give more information about any noun, but you have to remember what a noun is. Let's review. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, right? Like a marker. What kind of marker is it? How can we describe this marker and make it more specific? We can tell the color of it, a black marker, or the type, dry erase marker. Those words describe the noun, so they are adjectives, okay? Here, in my sentences, let's see if we find any adjectives. The cup has tea in it. Well, we have nouns, but do we have any information about what kind of nouns those are? Like any description of them? No, we don't. So this is where I always tell students, okay, make your writing more descriptive by just throwing in some adjectives to describe the nouns that you have in your sentence, because you always have nouns in your sentence. You don't always have adjectives, but you should if you want to make your writing more descriptive. Okay, so let's talk about this sentence and let's make it more descriptive by adding an adjective before each noun. Here's the cup of tea. What color is this cup? Well, actually, whoa, it's the same color as my earrings and my shirt. Anybody know? It's actually one of my favorite colors, turquoise. Turquoise. How do we spell that? Let's write it down. Here. What are we going to describe as turquoise? The cup, right? The turquoise. So we just add it right there before the noun. In English, most adjectives come before a noun, not all of them, okay? So yeah, the turquoise cup has tea in it. What kind of tea? It's actually black tea, okay? Or chai, to be specific, it's chai. So here, now I have an even more descriptive sentence. The turquoise cup has chai tea in it. So if I want to find adjectives, I can ask myself, well, where are the nouns in the sentence? Okay, cup, tea. And then I ask myself, what kind of cup is it? And the answer is the adjective, a turquoise cup. What kind of tea is it? Chai tea. These are adjectives. Now, sometimes adjectives can be nouns, okay? Like I have a garden outside, okay? What kind of garden is it? It's a vegetable garden. Vegetable is a noun by itself, but if you put it before a noun, like garden, it becomes an adjective, okay? And other adjectives are participle adjectives, words that describe the effect that someone feels or that something has on it after something is done. Like, I am confused, ed. I am confused by parts of speech. That's the effect that this video has on me. That's an adjective. Or maybe I can say parts of speech are confusing. Confusing is an adjective too. That is the cause of what is the cause is this video. This video is causing me to be confused. It's causing confusion. It is confusing. If that's confusing, go ahead and watch that video on participle adjectives, because participle adjectives are a monster and they need their own video actually, because they're pretty tricky, okay? But I wanted to let you know that those are different. There's different types of adjectives. Another type of adjective are the adjectives that start with letters A, like asleep, awake. For some reason, I forgot why, okay, but I remember learning about it. Some adjectives that start with the letter A, these types of adjectives describe a person, right? I am asleep or I am awake, right? They describe a person, but they always come after a verb, okay? And which means they come after a noun. I am awake, right? The baby is asleep, okay? So they come in a different place than you would see here, okay? All right, so those are some other types of adjectives that you need to look out for. But the point is, you are always looking for the noun. And when you find a noun, you say, what kind of noun is this? And if you can find the answer to it, that means you have found the adjective. Again, like cup. What kind of cup? Turquoise. Tea. What kind of tea? Chai. Okay. How about over here? I drink tea daily. Okay, so we only have one real noun in this sentence. We'll talk about what this is later. One real noun. We already know it's chai tea. Let's use a different adjective. Let's describe what it tastes like. I drink delicious tea daily. Okay? So what kind of tea? Delicious tea. That's an adjective. But before we move on, just to give you an example of what I mean by the adjectives that don't come before nouns, let's look at these. I was asleep, but now I'm awake. Okay, these words, asleep, awake, they are adjectives, but what are they describing? You have to look for the noun, or the person, or the place, or the thing, or the idea. And the only real noun you have here is a person, I. So, I was asleep. This describes I, okay? But now I'm awake. Awake describes I as well. And I could keep going and say, now I feel or am rested. It was nice to rest, okay? Another thing is be careful with the types of verbs that you see being used when an adjective comes after a verb. Because as I said, most adjectives in English come before a noun, okay? Before the noun, but not always. And that's usually when we have the type of adjective that we use with what's called a linking verb, a linking verb, a verb that links, okay, the subject to the adjective, all right? So these are types of linking verbs, okay? Verbs like be, I am, right? I am tired. Feel, I feel alive, right? Or became, I became interested in this, okay? So these are linking verbs. So a lot of times after a linking verb, you will have a adjective after it, okay? And I hear even native speakers getting confused with this, so I wanna let you know what's happening. A lot of times I hear people say, I feel badly about something, okay? Maybe they said something mean to someone and then later they say badly. And the reason why they're adding ly to make it an adverb, which we're going to talk about soon, is because they think they're describing a verb. Right, I'll write it down. I feel badly. And they'll put ly. Ly is usually what we use for an adverb. And they put it because this is a verb, feel, I feel. That's an action, right? Or a state, okay? But in reality, this is a linking verb. It's linking this and this together. So in fact, this word should not be an adverb. It should be an adjective because we're describing the person over here. I feel bad. Bad is absolutely 100% correct. It is not correct to say I feel badly. Although people totally understand what you're saying if you say it, it's called an overcorrection. But you will be right if whenever you use a linking verb and an adjective after it, not an adverb. Okay. All right. So let's talk about adverbs. All right. So adverbs. Adverbs are a little bit tricky because there's so much going on with them and they do so much. But here we go. Adverbs describe. I like to use the word describe. They describe verbs. So they tell us more about verbs. I run. How do I run? I run slowly. I run quickly. These are adverbs. Adverbs describe adjectives, okay? So tea, what kind of tea? The delicious tea, okay? Delicious, it's an adjective. Let's describe that adjective. The very delicious tea, we can say, okay? Or the wonderfully delicious tea, okay? Also, they describe other adverbs, okay? So we know that those adverbs usually end with an ly. So we say, I drink tea slowly. How slowly? I drink tea very slowly. I drink tea extremely slowly. Okay. And then they do a lot more, and we'll talk about that a little bit in this video. But here, let's look at the sentences that we already have. So the turquoise cup has chai tea in it. Okay, so let's try to add some adverbs. There are not any adverbs in this sentence yet because we don't have, well, there technically is an adverb in there, but we're not going to get into that because it's too technical. But we're going to add the type of adverb that we have up there listed. Okay, so the turquoise cup. Okay, now let's try to find an adjective and add an adverb to it, okay? So here's an adjective, turquoise. Okay, so we want to describe the turquoise. So we want to say something about the turquoise. How turquoise is it, okay? You can say it's, beautifully turquoise, or it's extremely turquoise, or it's very turquoise, or it's really turquoise, okay? So these words describe adjectives. They tell us how much of an adjective something is, okay? So the very turquoise, the really turquoise, the quite turquoise cup, okay? And that's an adverb, all right? So it's describing that adjective, okay? Over here we have an adjective as well, but it's a little bit harder to describe this adjective for some reason. I was thinking about it and I couldn't find an adverb to really describe it. What would work better in this case would be to just add another adjective in front of it or after it, okay? Because you can do that with adjectives. You can make a list of them, okay? Like I can say, the very turquoise cup has delicious chai tea in it. Or I can say it has delicious black chai tea in it. But you'll notice if I'm going to add a list of adjectives, they all come before that noun, okay? And I'm putting commas between them because it's a list of items in a series, okay? If it's just two adjectives, you can also put a comma, okay? Or you can put the word and, okay? But you can't always put the word and. That's the other tricky thing. Okay. Also, when you get a long list of adjectives, there's a specific order, which I'm not going to get into, but it's another confusing thing about English, that there's a particular order of how to list adjectives when you're putting more than one in a row. Like is the color, the type, the feel, the texture, all that, the origin. We're not going to get into that, but I'm sure there's a ton of resources out there for you. Here, we have them in the correct order. The delicious black chai tea is the correct order. If I said the chai delicious black tea, it's just not right, okay? Because there's a specific order. Okay, so yeah, taste, color, I guess, origin, okay? Now, I drink delicious tea daily. Okay, now here, let's find the type of adverb that describes a verb because we have an action. Over here, we just had a state verb. It's really hard to describe a state verb with an adverb because you just, I don't want to say you can't because there's so many exceptions. You probably could. It's easier to describe an action verb with an adverb. Okay, so here's the verb, I drink. How do I drink? How do I drink? Do I drink quickly, slowly, methodically? How do I do it? Okay. And where do we put it? I slowly drink or I drink slowly delicious tea, right? Well, here I would, in this sentence, because I have more coming after the verb, okay, I would put slowly here, okay? I slowly drink delicious tea daily, okay? So here, the word slowly is an adverb. Oops. It's an adverb, and it's describing this verb. It's telling the reader or the listener how I drink, okay? Here we have an adjective. We can describe this adjective with an adverb as well. What do we want to say? I slowly drink, extremely delicious tea. Okay, here's an adverb. You don't want to get too crazy and add too many adverbs and too many adjectives. Then it just goes overboard and it becomes what a lot of people say as it sounds like fluff, like you're adding too much. You want to be careful with when you choose to use descriptive words like adjectives and adverbs. All right, here, I slowly drink extremely delicious tea daily. Daily is technically an adverb as well, okay? It tells us whenever there's a word that tells you like time or frequency, when something happens, the day it happens, the time it happens, or how often it happens. These are actually adverbs as well, but we don't need to really get into that. I'm specifically talking about these three. One that we haven't talked about yet is this one, adverbs that describe other adverbs. So here, all we have to do is find an adverb in the sentences. 1, 2, 3, right? Now, let's add an adverb to these adverbs. Now this would be way overboard, but sometimes we want to say really, 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 really something, or very, 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 right? Okay, so the very turquoise cup, okay? I can add another adverb before this adverb, and I could say the really very turquoise cup. It's really very turquoise. That's an adverb. Two adverbs. Adverb describing an adverb, and an adverb describing an adjective. Whoa, that's a little overboard, but sometimes when I'm talking, I'll talk like that. When I'm writing, I don't need to, I don't do that. Slowly. I slowly drink tea, okay? How slowly? Really slowly, very slowly, quite slowly, ridiculously slowly, right? You can use any adverb here really to describe how slowly, okay? So here, all right, ridiculously. I ridiculously slowly, so how slowly? Ridiculously slowly, drink delicious tea. So this ridiculously word is an adverb describing one adverb, slowly, and slowly is describing the verb drink, right? Follow that? All right. I ridiculously slowly drink extremely delicious tea daily. Let's describe extremely. How extremely? Very extremely, really extremely, quite extremely, or insanely and extremely, whatever adverb you want to use, okay? I'm not going to write it down because I don't really write that many adverbs and adjectives, but I just want to show you how it works, okay? Okay, so with those 4 parts of speech that I've reviewed so far, noun, verb, adjective, and adverb, you're going to be pretty good there. Those are the ones that I tell my students they should know most importantly, because those are the ones that are going to help you with grammar mistakes that you might make if you're using the wrong form of a word, or they're the ones that are going to help your writing be more descriptive. So I always tell my students, when you learn a new word, try to learn all of the different forms of it, like the noun form, the adjective form, the adverb form. So here we have repeat. Repeat's the verb form. Repetition, that's the noun form. Also, a lot of nouns end with tion. That's a trick too. You can kind of start to look at the word endings, okay? Repetitive, that's the adjective form of the word repeat. And notice the ending. A lot of adjectives, not all, lots of them though, end with this type of ending. Repetitively, that's the adverb form of the word repeat. And many adverbs end with ly, but not all words that end with ly are adverbs, so be careful. But here we are. The 4 parts of speech we just learned, this is going to give you great vocabulary expansion power, okay? All right, so let's talk about the rest of the parts of speech. The article, the preposition, the interjection, and the pronoun. These ones I'm going to go over a little bit more quickly, okay? All right, let's talk about articles. Articles are one of the most difficult parts of learning English, I think, for a lot of people, just because to learn how to use them correctly, you kind of need to know what kind of noun you're using, whether it's a count noun or a non-count noun, or a noun that the person you're speaking to knows about or doesn't know about. It's really complicated. So I will be making a video on articles soon, and it will be there so you can watch that. I'm not going to get into detail about articles in this video. I just want to say that there are 3 articles in English: the, a, and an. That's all I'm going to say right here. They're too complicated to say more about in this video. But as you can see in this sentence, we do have an article, the. And articles usually come before noun. All right, let's talk about pronouns. Pronouns are words that just replace nouns. So we don't want to repeat a noun again and again and again in a sentence. Instead, we can use a pronoun to replace that word, okay? So let's look at what I'm talking about. My brother made tea for himself. He took 1 drink and then I stole it from him. It was his, but now it's mine. Okay, in this sentence, well, these sentences, we have lots of pronouns and there are lots of different types of pronouns. Let's look at them. Remember, pronouns replace a noun so you don't have to repeat it again and again and again. My brother, that's a noun, made tea for himself. Himself, that's a pronoun. Okay, so I'm just gonna circle that. And just to be clear, himself refers back to my brother. Now this is a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive pronouns are words like himself, myself, herself, yourself, themselves. These are pronouns that we use to say that we are doing something and it reflects and comes back to us, okay? He, that's a pronoun too. So I'm gonna circle it. This is a subject pronoun. It replaces the subject of a sentence that could have been my brother, okay? But instead of saying my brother, my brother, my brother, we can now say he, okay? He took one drink and then I stole it. What is it? It is a pronoun. It refers to what? What does it refer to? It refers to his tea, okay? And then I stole it from him. Him is a pronoun. What does it refer to? Who does it refer to? It refers to my brother, okay? And this is an object pronoun. Object pronouns come after verbs or prepositions. It, again, here's a pronoun. It, what does that refer to? It refers to the tea. It was his, okay? His refers to my brother's. This is a possessive pronoun. But now it is mine. It is mine. It is a pronoun that refers back to tea. Mine is the pronoun that refers to something that I possess, okay? There is a rundown of lots of examples of types of pronouns that you will need to know about at some point, okay? So just so you can review, I'll list the types. Okay, I know this looks like a lot, and it is, okay? But I'll just review them. Subject pronouns are words that replace a noun in the subject position of a sentence. Subjects are who or what a sentence is about. They're nouns. They are the things or the people that do the verb, the action in a sentence, right? So I, you, he, she, it, they, we, right? They come before verbs, okay? Object pronouns, these are words, pronouns that come after verbs or after prepositions. Me, he spoke to me. You, he spoke to you. Him, her, it, them, us. Then we have reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are the pronouns that we use to say that we've done something and it comes back to us. It's reflects back onto us, okay? So I can say, I looked at myself, I looked at myself in the camera, okay? So myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, themselves, plural. Ourselves, plural. And then we have possessive. Possessive pronouns just replace the possession of something. So my marker, your marker, his marker, her marker, right? But instead of saying marker, if you know and I already know it's the marker we're talking about, we can just say mine, yours, his, hers, its, theirs, ours. Okay, so these are some of the pronouns, not all of them. Okay, and so something you need to make sure you're aware of when you're using a pronoun, because pronouns always replace a noun, okay? They always refer back to a noun that you have mentioned earlier, okay? So you can't really just start talking and say it. No one's gonna know what it is, okay? You'd have to say, my tea, and then it was delicious. Then they know what it is, okay? But when you use that pronoun, you need to make sure that it agrees with the noun it's referring to. And that can get a little tricky. So if I say, my friends, and then later I want to use a pronoun, what am I going to say? Am I going to say he? Am I going to say she? Am I going to say it? Am I going to say they? I'm going to say they. I need to make sure that I'm thinking of the person, the number, and the gender when I'm talking about when I want to use a pronoun, okay? What do I mean by person? Person just means first person. So first person, I, me, right? Second person, you, yourself, right? And then third person, he, she, it, they, okay? So this is first, we, I, that's first person. You, that's second. And then third person is he, she, it, and they. All right, so in this example, you can see person issues with agreement for the pronoun. Tim called. You said hi. Here we have a pronoun. It should refer back to the noun that was mentioned. Tim is actually third person because it's he, okay? So then we would use he here, okay? Instead of you. He said hi. When we're talking about pronouns and agreement, we need to think about number. Number means, do we need to use a singular pronoun, which means one, or do we need to use a plural pronoun, which means more than one? So here, I is singular, you is singular, but it can also be plural. He, she, and it are singular. They is plural. We is plural. So look at this sentence. My friends called. What's a pronoun that I should use for this plural noun? Am I going to say she said hi, he said hi, it said hi? No, I'm going to say they said hi. They is plural because friends is plural. Okay, so the last thing that you need to consider when you are using a pronoun to refer back to a noun to make sure they agree is to think about the gender. Gender refers to an individual's experience with, being a male or a female or anything, anywhere in between, okay? And so when we're referring to a person, okay, and we know that person, for example, clearly identifies with being a male, for example, like my brother, okay, then the pronoun we would use would be he, because my brother is a male, he is a male. My brother called, he said hi, okay? Or if it's me, Jamie, you're talking about me, third person. I identify, my gender expression is female, okay? So you would use she for me, or her. Okay, so you want to think about person, number, and gender. Just be careful with gender because not everybody who might, in your idea, be put into a box of being male or female, assigns themselves and identifies themselves with those labels. Okay, so a lot of times people will tell you that instead of using he or she, they want to use the pronoun they. Okay, so if somebody ever tells you that, or you see that they've used those pronouns like in writing, then you could say that when you're referring to them. Okay, or whatever pronoun they use. So that is how you make sure your pronouns agree, okay? All right, let's talk about prepositions. Okay, so prepositions are words that are so hard, okay? There's really very few rules that we can follow to actually understand them. There's a lot of confusion around prepositions for good reason, okay? But prepositions are words that show us location, they show us time, and a lot of other things, okay? So I like to tell my students that prepositions are this. Okay? You see a person's face. Now, imagine that there's a fly flying around that person's face. Location, where can that fly land? Okay, or go. Where can it go? Where can it land? Where can it stop? Okay, it can stop on top of the person's head. It can fly over the person's head. It can fly under the person's chin. It can go through their hair, okay? It can go in their nose. I hope not. It can go right here between their eyes. You get the idea? Prepositions show us location, but they also can tell us time. So imagine you want to know, well, when did that fly land in your nose? When did that happen? Well, it happened at 1 o'clock, or it happened around 1 o'clock, or it happened before 1 o'clock, or it happened after, or it happened from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Okay, so you can see prepositions are these little words that bring other words together and help us make sense in a sentence in English. Now, there are many, 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 many prepositions and many, many, many other uses. I could do 500 videos on prepositions. I should someday, maybe I will. But what I want to say is that prepositions tell us a lot, okay? But one thing you need to know is that you can never have a preposition without a noun after it. I mean, actually you can. You can end a sentence with a preposition, actually, okay? You can. But prepositions don't usually come by themselves. They come with a noun after them, okay? So we would say in class, around my house, okay? Outside the yard, you know. So prepositions come with nouns. That's all I want to say. So prepositional phrase is a preposition plus a noun. Okay? So that's all I'm going to say about prepositions because there is so much to know about them. The last word form or part of speech that I want to talk about is an interjection. An interjection. Okay, interjections are just words that show, you know, like our emotion or some sort of exciting thing. Honestly, I don't use them much when I'm writing. I use them all the time when I'm talking. A good way to describe interjections is to say that they are cuss words. They are swear words. They are the words that we let out when, like, we're excited, we're angry, or we're confused, but those bad words, right? Like, I don't want to say them for the video, even though I totally could, but you know, the F word, you know, all these words, okay? And that's because they come in the middle of our sentence. They interject themselves into what we're already saying. They could even interject themselves into a word. And it doesn't have to be a bad word, actually. It could be just another word that injects itself inside of another word. Okay, so let me give you an example of an interjection inside of a sentence. This video is so long. So sometimes when people are talking, especially when they're talking, usually not when they're writing, it becomes informal. But when we're talking, we'll throw in interjections, which are technically even, you know, adjectives and adverbs and nouns and things like that, but they just interrupt the flow of a sentence, sort of. One that I would say is like, this video is so freaking long, okay? That's an interjection, right? Or another type of interjection could be inside of a word, like, this is fantastic. So sometimes people will interject inside of a word and say, yeah, it's long, but it's fan-freaking-tastic, right? So they'll put it inside of a word, okay? Interjections can also be like these sounds, like, huh? Wow. Really? Or, huh? These words. And I think the best way I could say to learn interjections is to just talk and listen to people talk, listen to authentic speech, because they're used when we're speaking, not so much when we're writing. And they're good ways to fill what you're saying, because then you sound more fluent, right? That's an interjection. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video, and leave a comment if you have any questions. I will try to help you and answer them. And I hope that this helped you. Bye-bye.